So one of the main reasons that you still speak with an accent in your target language is that that language makes use of sounds that exist in that language but do not exist in your language. But they might make use of sounds that are very similar. So you might not notice the difference, but I guarantee you that native speakers do notice. So in this video, I'm going to give you a powerful resource for paying attention to these very subtle but important differences.
If you've ever looked in a dictionary, you've probably seen this before, where you have the English word that you're looking up, and then below that you have this really strange way of spelling that word. And you can kind of tell what it says because it uses some English letters, but it also uses these really weird things that you've never seen before. Or if you have seen them, then it's like in the name of a fraternity or something like that. But this is what's called the International Phonetic Alphabet, or the IPA. And this is actually a really great resource for understanding how to pronounce a word if you're not familiar with the pronunciation in that language. And the reason that the IPA is so great is that most alphabets in the majority of the world's languages are absolutely terrible for showing you how a word is supposed to be pronounced. Now, some of them are a little bit better, like Spanish, but even that has a lot of ambiguities and can be confusing at times. And English is a great example of this. English is terrible about the correlation between spelling and pronunciation, because we have here the letter S that can be pronounced like the S in saw. We also have the C that can be pronounced like the C in city. And then over here we have letters that can be pronounced in two different ways, like the G in gem or gremlin. And then we also have a lot of letters that just aren't pronounced at all, like the K in knife. And then if you look at this specific combination of letters, that can be pronounced in 6 different ways, or even more depending on your dialect. It can be pronounced as O, oo, off, uff, ow, or aw. So that's why linguists developed the IPA. And this is great because it has a 1-to-1 ratio, which means there's one symbol per sound. And it's never going to be ambiguous. It's never going to be confusing. If you see how something is written in the IPA, you're going to know exactly how that word is supposed to be pronounced. And every word in every human language known to us can be written using the IPA. So this here is the IPA, and as you can see, there are a ton of different symbols. Some of them you should be familiar with, like p, b, t, d, n. And some of them you might not be familiar with. Like this you've probably only seen if you're in a sorority or something, or if you're learning Greek. You have a bunch of different vowels down here, like a and a and e. Now, I don't want you to feel intimidated by this chart because there's so many letters in it. You actually, in order to make use of this chart, you really only need to learn a small percentage of these letters and sounds. And what I do when I'm learning a language and I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce words in that language is I go to Wikipedia and I type in the name of the language that I'm learning and then the word phonology. So just for an example, we're going to look at the phonology of Spanish and English. And you can see here that this is a much simpler IPA chart than the one that we were looking at over here with all these different symbols. And here's the English IPA chart. And like I said, there's a lot of symbols in here that you're going to be familiar with. We have p, t, b, d. And then we do have a few over here that you might not recognize the symbols, but you're very familiar with the sounds. For example, we have zh as in Asia. We have sh as in show, j as in jack. So what I want to show here is that every language does not always have the same inventory of sounds. For example, if you're learning Spanish, then you're probably going to be very familiar with the famous rrr, which is this alveolar trill right here. What we have in English is this post-alveolar approximant but we don't have the trill in English. Another thing that you might notice is that Spanish does not have this glottal h sound. Now, if you're learning Spanish, you might think of words like jugar or jugo or Juan or something like that that you might think has this H sound that we have in English. Or really any word that has a J in Spanish, you might think of as using this English H sound. But actually that sound doesn't even exist in Spanish. What they have instead is this velar sound. And this sound is actually not pronounced like the H in English, where you just open your throat and let the air pass through. Like, It's actually much more similar to how you pronounce, you kind of close the back of your mouth off like you do in a K or a G. And it's pronounced like this. And you can kind of tell that it's just a little bit rougher and it has more friction in the sound. That's why studying this IPA chart is going to be so useful to you when you're learning a new language. You can't always just take sounds from your language and apply them to the other language. Or you can, but it's going to sound strange to them, and that's why you speak with an accent. Another reason that this chart is so useful is that you might discover that the language you're learning uses some of the sounds from your language in areas that you're not expecting. For example, in the Spanish word para. Now, in Spanish, this R sound is pronounced using a flap. R, like that. And you might not think that English has this sound, but it actually does in words like potter or water or butter. So when you pronounce the Spanish word para, you're almost pronouncing the same thing that we say in English when we say Harry Potter. In fact, if we were just to change this to that, now you're basically pronouncing the same thing. You're saying para instead of the Spanish word para. And then really the only difference is just a very slight difference in pronunciation in the P, and maybe also a slight difference in how you pronounce the O or the A. Which brings me to vowels in other languages. So this up here that we were looking at is the consonant chart, and this literally has every consonant in the Spanish language and every consonant used in the English language. Well, down here, this is how we can judge the vowels, and this is sort of a representation of where your tongue is supposed to be in your mouth. So when you pronounce the E sound, your tongue is a little more forward, and when you pronounce the ah sound, it's a little bit more back. And normally when you think about vowels in the English language, you normally think we have 5 vowels, right? A, E, I, O, U. Well, that's not exactly accurate. We actually have much closer to 12 vowels in the English language, and it might be more or less depending on the dialect and the region that you're from. But you can see that we do share some of the same vowels as Spanish. E, U, A, ah. But we also have a lot more. We have ah, and these sounds don't exist in Spanish. And I could spend months teaching you exactly how to use all the nuances of the International Phonetic Alphabet, but this video is just meant to be a basic crash course. And if you're interested in improving your pronunciation and reducing your accent, then I highly recommend taking a look at the International Phonetic Alphabet. Like I said, go to Wikipedia, type in the language that you're learning, and then type in phonology, and it's going to bring up a great page that's going to show you all the IPA symbols in that language, the consonants, and the vowels as well. And it's going to give you a lot of information that is going to be able to help you be able to pronounce the words in your language much better. So thanks for watching my video. If you liked it and you think it's going to be useful for you in language learning, then go ahead and subscribe. And I produce new language learning videos every week. And my goal is to help you learn languages in a way that's fast, fun, and easy. You can also follow me on Twitter at fingtam.languages. So thanks for watching my video, and we'll see you guys next time.